So I I usually for each year have a kind of watch list of shows that I get on DVD and that I kind of want to watch through for the year's end. I had one as well for 2019, and the first one has just been struck off the list. First season of iZombie. Now, for a bit of background, I had a selection of CW shows that I have enjoyed kind of watching. I mean, I just got into Supernatural, and as I've mentioned before, the Arrowverse shows are kind of among my favourites, and I also just started Black Lightning. iZombie, however, it wasn't one that I was really familiar with. I mean, I'd heard about it and heard it was supposedly based on a run of DC Comics, kind of their Vertigo imprint, but I was curious about it, but I never actually thought to myself, well, by the end of 2018, I was once again kind of getting curious about it, so I put it on my wish list, and I got it for my birthday. And Kev, after watching the first season through, I think this is a series that I personally could get into. I could binge. For, for those who don't know, the show focuses around a young woman named Olivia Moore, nicknamed Liv. Liv Moore. I'm going to start off, that is a pretty bad pun. I mean, she's a zombie and her name is Liv Moore. She was planning just to have a normal life. I mean, she had a good job, kept working. I'm not entirely sure what she was, whether she was a doctor, whether she was just a nurse, but she worked at a local hospital and she had a good fiance and she was doing fairly well until she went to the world's worst boat party, where an international incident basically resulted in a zombie outbreak. She got scratched and she becomes a zombie. However, these zombies aren't kind of like your typical zombies from zombie movies, like Dawn of the Dead, uh, World War Z, but whatever, take your pick with zombie movies. If the zombies can maintain a constant supply of brains, they can more or less remain functional. Okay, they can lead relatively human lives. They're undead, but they still continue to look like any normal living person. If, however, they go beyond a certain point, then they go full Dawn of the Dead, uh, World War Z, take your pick. So to kind of cover up for this, Liv works at the morgue. So basically, she consumes the brains of kind of homicide victims. But eating brains also comes with a side effect, in that the zombies, when they eat the brains, they experience kind of flashes of the person's life, kind of specific moments. And Liv kind of works with a detective, Clyde Babineau, in order to kind of solve homicides. And it's actually a fairly elegant system. I mean, the cast in here is a pretty good cast. I mean, you've got Rose McIver as Liv, you've got Malcolm Goodwin as Clyde Babineau. Uh, the only person in the first series, at least, or most of the first season, who actually knows that Liv is a zombie is her boss, Ravi Chakrabarti, played by Rahul Kohli, and she does very well. You've also got Liv's ex-fiancée, Major Lillywhite, played by Robert Buckley. He's pretty good. And the only actor who I personally recognise from other things in the show, in the first season at least, was who plays Laurel Tracy is Bradley James, whom I recognised from the BBC series Merlin. But anyway, that's just me. He does a good job as well. And similar to how they had kind of James Masters playing Spike for Buffy, the iZombie also has a kind of Spike type figure named Blaine McDonough, or Blaine De Beers McDonough, played by David Anders, and he's kind of very much the Spike figure in that I'm told later on he kind of remains alive. People don't really like him and don't really want him alive, but the thought that if he isn't there are worse fish out there to fry, and so they just kind of allow him to, rather begrudgingly allow him to live. But yeah, I do feel it's a rather good show. I mean, I kind of watched some episodes and then I got kind of really into it. I mean, for my favourite episode, I personally would probably say episode 8 of the first series, Dead Air, where kind of Liv and Clyde Babineau investigate a case of a radio presenter known for kind of straight-talking relationship talk who was seemingly murdered on air. Kind of look around her kind of fellow kind of co-presenters and people at the radio station to try and work out who would have caused to do her in and who exactly did. And it is kind of a rather nice touch. I mean, like I said, it kind of works as kind of a horror setting meets CSI. And it's a rather elegant system. I mean, the ending of the first series at least does also provide a rather good cliffhanger with Liv's brother in hospital, and they said they're out of O negative blood, and her mother suggests, well, Liv's O negative blood, you can take some first. Like, please go with the doctor, save your brother. It's almost like, no. And it's a rather sad moment, but you can also understand her point of view in that if she gives her brother the blood, they'll find out she's a zombie or he could become a zombie. And it's kind of rather sad kind of watching these two sides duel. I mean, I personally know later on that kind of Liv's family ended up rejecting her because she didn't want to give the blood, but I also know there was a deleted scene that I've now seen with her brother Evan that I do kind of feel would have wrapped up his character nicely if they had included it, in which she reveals to him that she's a zombie and he reveals to her that he's gay. And I actually think it's a rather nice thing to watch. It was sad that it was cut, but apparently later on they'd said the first... I'd say this. They apparently took on board the audience's reaction. The audience didn't like the family stuff so much, so they cut it. Which I feel is a little bit sad. It would have been nice to go see things wrap up. And I know that the series is kind of this year coming into its kind of final season. So it would be nice if they wrap things up with the family, but yeah. But for the first season at least, I feel it's a good show, and it's one that I could find myself getting wrapped up in. I might get Series 2 later down the line, and I think it's a good show. So first one off my list, iZombie Season 1. I think it's a really good one. Have to see what comes off my list next. Until then, see ya.